justice and peace and equality.
Game Changers Media Network, Game Changers Magazine, Voices of the Village podcast, where change starts with conversation. And we're back with entrepreneur and banker, Mr. Nick Peebles. And before we went to break, Nick, we were talking about business acquisition versus buying versus building, right? Yeah. And we were talking about some of the things that entrepreneurs struggle with when they're building a business. They are building the business. Right. When they're buying into the business, it's more of a business acquisition. Yeah. Now, let's talk about salary, because most people think when they get into entrepreneurship that, hey man, I'm just gonna get this money, man. I'm gonna be balling out of control, go on vacation when I want to, live a free life, pretty much, right? Yeah. All right, tell us let's fall back into that.
So, full transparency. Again, I've been doing this for the last decade. Okay. And I've noticed different behaviors based off of different races and ethnicities. Okay. Right. So in terms of our people. Right. Whenever we start a business, a lot of times we're trying to fund our lifestyle because we need the money. Right. And then opposed to other races and ethnicities, whenever they have additional cash flow coming in, they allocate that capital to the infrastructure of the business. Okay. Right? So, now, again, we're talking about consumer habits. Right. So I believe the best way in terms of, an entrepreneur, you have to put money back into the business, and you have to be willing to reduce your lifestyle in the early years until you're able to afford the G-Wagon or any other, whatever your preference of vehicle is, right? Whatever that luxury vehicle is, we have to be able to sacrifice a lifestyle that we want to live, even though the money is coming in, because we got to put that back into the infrastructure.
Man, I'm telling you. So infrastructure is one thing, but how do you pay yourself as a business owner starting out? Because, do I need to get a job? Do I need to depend on the business? I need employees. I need people to work for me. I got rent to pay. The list is loaded. Not only rent to pay for your business, but rent to pay at home.
So again, it depends on the strategy, right? So if you're doing a business acquisition, what I do is I look at all of your personal debts. Okay. Right? So I pull the credit report and I see, how much is your mortgage or your rent, how much is your, your car note, the credit cards. I look at all that to make sure that you can afford to pay yourself, because we understand as lenders that if you can't afford to pay yourself, once you acquire this business, you're not going to be able to mentally continue to operate this business long term. Correct. So, in terms of how you pay yourself the same way you pay everybody else. Okay. You put yourself on W-2 income. Depending on the setup, you can also pay yourself through distributions as well. Okay. If you pay yourself through distributions, that comes from tax advantages, I would say. Okay. Opposed to just straight out W-2 income.
Now mixing, I think one of the biggest challenges entrepreneurs have is mixing their personal money and business money. Correct. Right? Yeah. What do you think is the best way for an entrepreneur, coming from the business world, your business background, looking at an entrepreneur on paper, what do you think are some of the best ways for an entrepreneur to actually manage their money from and separate it from a business and a personal standpoint?
Well, I would say at first you have to have enough coming in to be able to separate. Okay. Right? Because early on in the early years, it may be hard if you did not go the business acquisition route, and if you're building from the ground up, those two will be commingled. Yes. Right? Yes. So, and in a situation like that, maybe it may be ideal for you to be a S Corp. Okay. Right? So then, therefore, it flow through on your personal tax returns as well, the revenue from the business. Right. In which it may make sense in terms of commingling, because now you have the ability to write off certain things. So let's just say you buy a car. A lot of people want to buy a car, and then you can write it off against the business. Okay. Right? So that's a situation where it may make sense in terms of commingling. Okay. But I would say always get with the advisor. Always have you a good team of you always want a CPA. You want an attorney and you want a banker.
Yes.
And you want a consultant.
Okay.
Right? So those are the main
lawyer.
people. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Those are the main people you need so you can properly build this thing out early on before you just kind of dive into it.
Okay. And I mean, it sounds like a lot of expenses out top.
It can be.
It sounds like a lot of expenses out top, and some of those things that kind of, go on in the business world for business entrepreneurs. I think one of the let's talk about business entrepreneurship from a global standpoint. Okay. Right. With the tariffs and let's say I own a business and my business is product driven. Okay. Right? Yeah. And being that my business is product driven, what effect are the tariffs that are being put in place by President Trump, with other countries? What effect is that having on small business owners today?
Well, it's going to have a major impact. Okay. But also it depends on the products you sell and where you're sourcing them from. Okay. So, obviously we all know China is one of the main suppliers in terms of the goods that businesses sell. Okay. But also, if you look around the map, Vietnam is big on shoe production. Yes. Right? In which, that's why I say it really kind of depends on the product that you're selling. Okay. But small businesses, they are going to be impacted tremendously by tariffs. We're already seeing it. Okay. I believe that we haven't really seen the full ramifications of the tariffs just yet. I believe that's going to come later on this year, probably Q3, Q4 of this year. Is when we should really see the full impact of the tariffs.
All right, so we're about halfway. We're about almost finished with the second quarter of the year, right? Yeah. Now, right. Yeah. Where are we at in the second quarter of the year as far as banking looks? For the not just the entrepreneur but the average consumer.
Well, I would say a lot of people's on the sideline right now. Right. So a lot of people just kind of waiting. Okay. Right. Because we're going through a major shakeup right now within our economy. Right. So, because of that, the investors are on the sideline, the businesses are on the sideline in terms of making these, heavy investments needed to continue to be competitive within the marketplace. Okay. Right? So, everyone's a little nervous. Everyone's a little bit on, pins and needles. Right. I believe the best companies are the ones that have a lot of cash on the balance sheet that can weather the storm, however long this storm lasts.
Now, Bitcoin, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency is high on the rise, and right now, depending on where you are, depending on how you invested or didn't invest, they're telling you this Bitcoin. What are the banks looking at when it comes to like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency? What are they looking at? Can you depend on this money or can you not? What's the status of Bitcoin and how does it play into banking?
Yeah, so the side of the fence that I'm on in banking, we don't talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not even really a fact.
Bitcoin, okay.
On the side that I operate on, right? So in corporate finance, we're not talking about Bitcoin at all. Okay. I would say in terms of my personal belief, I've never been a big Bitcoin fan. All right. Nor have I been a big crypto fan. Okay. Just because it really doesn't hold intrinsic value. So because it doesn't really hold intrinsic value, how can we really put a true valuation on that? Yeah. Right? Because typically a valuation is driven through what? The performance of the company, right? Correct. So the balance sheet, the P&L, that's how you put a valuation on something. Okay. What is Bitcoin? Right? So when I look at that, it can be easily manipulated, I believe, in terms of the price. Okay. I'm not saying that you haven't had people to be able to, fund the lifestyle from it or, acquire certain assets because you can, but it's the Wild Wild West right now, and in the Wild Wild West, anything goes because it's unregulated.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, and you talk about in the corporate finance side, and what we're trying to do in this conversation is build that entrepreneur, that small business owner role. Yeah. Like you say, in the business acquisition, and most entrepreneurs, at times we get to a point we're looking for the fast money, we're looking for the dope boy style money, and Bitcoin and cryptocurrency seems to be that, hey man, I could throw it against the wall and man, I could have $1 million in cryptocurrency. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, we've seen people buy Bentleys. We've seen people buy homes with Bitcoin. You know, so you're telling me on the United States finance banking side, that's not even a factor going into the corporate world.
Yeah, based off the side of the fence that I'm on, right? So now I do know that, you know, they are working to try to regulate the crypto industry for it to be its own marketplace.
Right.
I'm not really in the business of predicting. I always just take everything for face value for where we are now.
Okay.
And I know where we are now, the way I view Bitcoin.
Okay.
Is, you know, again, if we had a football game, if we had a soccer game, Bitcoin is the fan that's streaking in the middle of the field because it's going to caught everyone's attention, right? And we all watching until security comes to haul off Bitcoin off the field. Okay. So in my mind, that's how I view Bitcoin. Right. But we'll see how it pans out.
All right. So moving right along in what you specialize in, corporate banking. Yeah. All right. The big companies.
Yeah. Middle market up to around 50 million in top line revenue.
All right. What's the status of them in America right now? Because they seem to, I mean, they're making $250 million. Yeah. Business like Target, I mean, of course, Pastor Jamal Bryant, you know, he led a boycott against Target, but it didn't seem to affect them.
Actually, so Target is feeling the impact. I believe Target revenue was down 3%. Okay. 3% on a multi-billion-dollar revenue size company is pretty material. Okay. So I would say Target is feeling it. Okay. I know Target is trying to change their strategy. I recently read on the Wall Street Journal that Target is now looking to try to target more so rural communities, right? The communities that really align with the current administration and support the efforts of reducing DEI. But we'll see. I would say in terms of middle market, though, we got to understand that as we're making that transition from small business and continue to scale, the world is really globalized.
Absolutely. So, with the internet, with digital marketing,
Yeah, absolutely. So with that being said, as long as you have a diversified customer base, you'll be able to, again, withstand any type of economic downturn. So the businesses within the middle market space, they're still doing good. And they have access to capital that small business don't. Okay. Right. So they're able to leverage something called private credit. Okay. And private credit specializes in lending to the middle market size companies.
Yeah. Okay. I see exactly what you're saying. And so, how does that small business owner get to that corporate? You know, because you made a statement. You said recognizing your demographic, who you're marketing to, and not just one nationality. Yeah. And most times with African American businesses, we have one target market. Yeah. Now, I don't think that's all on just that on the business owner because some nationalities just don't buy from African Americans unless it's like food. They go to out eat to their restaurant, something of that nature. So, tell us how can African American businesses diverse into other markets and produce a market of consumership from other nationalities?
So I would say number one, it's about us adapting our mindset, changing our mindset, because people of color make up 78% of the world's population. Okay. So in terms of, other people not really wanting to do business with us, right? That's not all the way true. So I know. Correct. I know when I began to expand out, I have a strategic business partner that's in China. Okay. And whenever you begin to explore business on a global level in other countries, they are a lot more receptive to us than what we've been led on to believe. Right. I also have relationships in Brazil. It's the same way. I have relationships in Ireland. It's the same way. Man. So I would say in terms of that entrepreneur, number one, you absolutely have to diversify.
Yes,
and you have to create a product. Number one, I believe a lot of us, we get in business because we recognize that our community is lacking something.
Okay.
Right? So it's this moral compass within us that forces us to create this product that we need that's missing within the marketplace for our people.
All right.
The issue with that at times
okay.
is that we know our people may not have the same amount of discretionary income to spend on outside pleasures, whether it may be lawn care or it may be a restaurant. We may be not able to afford to do that on a consistent basis the same way other demographics can.
Yes.
And because of that, we see this kind of wavering support in terms of our revenue whenever we do mainly just focusing on us. Okay. So now we have to create a business model to where let's create a product or a service to support us.
Okay.
But then let's also create a product that's or a service that's highly profitable. So to give you an example, Lexus and Camry.
Okay.
Owned by the same company.
Yes, sir.
Marketed to two different demographics.
Okay.
As black people, we need to understand that we can still create a product to support us.
Okay.
But we also need to create a product to where it's solely driven based off of margin and profitability.
Okay. Now, when we're looking at margin and profitability, and we're looking at some of the things for as a business owner, we're looking at creating products, the market is oversaturated on a lot of business ideas that we come up with, or that we actually see in the African American community, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you see that can grow? Or do we need like partnerships? Do we need like because a lot of times it's like, this is my baby and I don't want nobody to touch it, when it comes to our business. Like, how do we need to grow as entrepreneurs so that we can unify and present this picture to the bank that's saying, hey man, not only am I just coming to you asking you for money, but we have investors, we have people that interest, we have people that are business partners with us that's seeing the vision of what's going on.
So I would say we need to have a diversified ecosystem within Black America. Okay. So, and the main way we access this is through education. So, we have, to your point, there can be a saturation within our communities with maybe restaurants or, a lot of people, a lot of us go for what we see and what we know.
Okay.
But we need the black doctors, we need the black scientists, we need the black engineers.
Yes.
We need us in all these spaces so we as a people can continue to grow and thrive. Okay. And then we will have the capital needed to turn around and help support the small businesses within our community.
Okay.
Right? But a lot of times, because we're not diversified enough, because there's not enough of us in all these different spaces and sectors, that's why it feels overcrowded and oversaturated.
So we just celebrated Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah. We
just celebrated Cinco de Mayo. We're getting ready to celebrate Juneteenth, right?
Yeah.
Why is it that we, we celebrate, Mexican restaurants are packed now on Cinco de Mayo. African Americans are celebrating over here.
Yeah.
But we're buying products, we're buying bees, we're buying all the tequila that we can buy up, when we're there. But when it comes like to Juneteenth, it seems like a one-dimensional product designed to a one-dimensional nationality.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So how do we get America to buy into our celebration day? From an economic standpoint, when we talk about diversity. So, hey, we feel your pain, but feel our pain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How do we diversify that when we're celebrating cultures? Because it seems like African Americans celebrate cultures, everybody else's culture, but nobody else celebrates ours.
Yeah. So, great question. I believe whenever we look at the Hispanic culture, the Hispanic culture is more so a culture of fun, right? So whenever you think about, Mexican food, or a Mexican restaurant, you thinking of tequila shot, nachos, right? You thinking of
Yeah.
That's the
food.
vibe. Party food.
Yes, yes.
Well, whenever you think about the black community's culture,
Juneteenth.
That's not really something to. It's something to be proud of because it was a time to where we were able to advance, but we don't necessarily have a product outside of entertainment.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
To where we can really celebrate. I feel like those are two different. It's just two different vibes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see where you're going.
It's two different vibes.
And man, I see exactly where you're going with it. Because it's more like it's a celebration on one side, and then on the other side, it's kind of like, okay, we shall overcome. It's daunting, it's dragging.
It's still a lot of trauma that we still going through from there. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's really hard to celebrate.
Wow.
In terms of everyone coming together.
Absolutely.
I think it's hard for other races to celebrate that.
And you know, so. And with that being said, I mean, I think we gotta, change our minds as African American entrepreneurs. Yeah. Like you said, diversify the message, diversify, who's buying into us, who's not buying into us, and I think it's built on relationships as well.
Absolutely. So
more so than color, and nationality. Yeah,
and it's also about how we telling our story.
Okay.
Right? So I believe the best period, and this is my personal opinion, right?
Right.
I believe the best period for black people, in terms of a positive story being shared, was the 90s. Whenever you look at the different sitcoms, you saw black positivity. Right. You had Martin, right? One of my favorite shows of all time.
Okay.
To where it was pure comedy, it was pure fun. That entire era where you look at Boomerang, to where the Eddie Murphy, the main character, was head of a marketing company. It was showing black positivity, right? It was showing black excellence. I believe that we need to continue to push more black excellence in terms of the form of media, right? Outside of what you're doing, because what you're doing is phenomenal.
Appreciate it, baby.
You know what I'm saying? But in terms of the different movies and the sitcoms, we've had enough D-boys, right?
We've definitely had enough of that.
So I believe if we continue to curate a positive message around black culture and get people comfortable with black culture, because we know they love our music, right? And they can recite it, and they'll be at all the concerts. But in terms of actually celebrating us for us, right, being happy for us, I think that's gonna come with time, and that's gonna come with us curating a new type of message, a different tone to the world.
Man, we're gonna talk about more about banking, the evolution of the African American entrepreneur. All of that, man. You guys, we gotta go to another commercial break, but I got Nick Peebles right here. Entrepreneur specialist, banking specialist, influencer, man. He's dropping some major nuggets here on Voices of the Village podcast where change starts the conversation. You guys stay tuned.
And equality.